Benjamin L. Andersen, and my correct spelling is S-E-N, but the Army made me S-O-N, and I couldn't get it changed until just a week ago. And what they said was, we're not changing it. They're not changing it, and the VA finally changed it. And I had to go through a process to do that. It took a 3-month process. I was born in Storm Lake, Iowa, February 5th, 1950. I don't know what my father did. My mother was a waitress, and I had 2 brothers and a sister. There was 4 of us. That my mother was a single parent. I started in Perry, Iowa. I ended up in Kansas City, Missouri. There was a period in St. Louis, and then Perry, Des Moines, St. Louis, Kansas City. And Kansas City was the largest period of schooling. My brother was in the Navy. My younger brother was in the Air Force, but he was only in the Air Force for about 30 days. He got a medical discharge, hip troubles. The day that I turned 18, I enlisted in the Army for 4 years. February 5th, 1968, I went down and enlisted in the Army, and I did not tell my mother or anybody else. I was 18. I worked above a TV shop. I worked in the TV shop from the age of 13 till I left to the service. At that time, I was part of the new VOTEC programs, and they had electronics, so I had 2 years of electronic training in high school, and I was convinced that the Army was my future. And I joined the Army Security Agency, which is part of the National Security Agency. And there, they kind of guaranteed me a technical training. I became an Army Security Agency after boot camp. And I did my electronic and teletype equipment repair training down in Fort Gordon, Georgia. Yeah, sure. And I was there for 48 weeks for training. I trained on what they called AMARS and AMAS, which is automatic multiple addressing systems. Today, when we look at emails, we have different headers on there where this email can go from 1 to 1,000 locations. Back in 1968, we had one machine called TT5 that was a tape reader. And we had to have a TT5 for every location that this tape was going to be sent to. All right? And it was sent at 60 words a minute. We lived in a 60-word-a-minute world, and at high speed was 100 word a minute. If they took a video or a tape of action or anything else in Vietnam, it took sometimes 3 to 5 days to get that same tape back in the United States. There was no instantaneous communication unless it was something very, very special. And I also met Dan Rather in the field. Okay. They put on a program for Dan, okay, right? And normally I don't take part in operations, but they were looking for people to put on a performance for Dan. So they had an area that they said that there was VCN. We attacked the area, and they had bodies there. And Dan stood back in his vest and all that stuff and watched, and they left. I was not supposed to go to Vietnam, all right, because there was no Army Security Agencies people in Vietnam, is what they tell you. But when I got my orders for Vietnam, right after I got out of school, I said I'm not supposed to go to Vietnam. I went to the recruiter and said I'm not supposed to go to Vietnam. And he said to me, the Army Security Agency is not in Vietnam. The radio research companies are in Vietnam, and you're going to a radio research company. And that's where I went. There was I and one other radio research people, and we were split off from the group. We went to downtown Saigon. We're stationed in a hotel for 2 weeks where we filled sandbags. We were supposed to have training and told what we were going to do, but there was none of that. We went, after that 2 weeks, I went to Nha Trang, and that's where my battalion headquarters was at, and I was going to work in the communication center there. And at that time, Nha Trang had a beautiful new facility, and the place I was going to work in had 100 teletype in it, had 3 AMAS consoles set up, and a beautiful, beautiful workroom, and air conditioning. So I started working there. I worked evenings, and first time in my life I had ever had a room by myself. That I was in a whole different world. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and Saigon was really eye-opening. And then I get to Nha Trang, which is also eye-opening. Nha Trang has beautiful white sand beaches. Just interesting area, and very, very beautiful French Vietnamese women. And 19-year-olds have a tendency to look at very beautiful women. And I thought I died and gone to heaven. What happened was, after 2 weeks, I get a rather rude awakening at E5, that was the Specialist 5, from Sinop, which is in Turkey, came in and knocked me out of my slot. That same day he came in, I got sent to Pleiku, Vietnam, to the 4th Infantry Division, and I'm in a helicopter with a fellow whose uniform, his jungle fatigues were red, his eyebrows were red, his mustache was red, his boots were red, everything was red, and I can't figure out what the hell why is he looking this way? And I asked him about it. Oh, he says, I'm going to introduce you to hell. And so we helicoptered into Pleiku, and it was the dry season, and the helicopter brought up plumes of red dust. The whole area was much like almost identically to the same red color as in Georgia, and we landed the helicopter. I took my duffel bag, and they had a Jeep waiting for us, and I go into the, we had a compound. We had a compound within the base camp. So I go into our compound, and I'm introduced to the 374th RRC. And that first night, the big question was, are you a soda suck or do you drink? Oh, that's the big question. So, of course, my answer was, I'm no soda suck. The next morning, I meet the CO, and he says, I see you've already met the wrong group of people. So I had met the wrong group of people. Nixon had just become president, if I remember correctly, right? And they'd already started drawdowns. Yes. They don't talk about the drawdowns until later on, but the Army had tactfully started the drawdowns, and our company was always at half strength, which means that we had 84 guys there. And our particular mission was to copy any electronic information that's being sent up, Morse, teletype, any type of electronic voice, any type of electronic information that's being sent up into the air. Our job is to copy that information, regardless of origin. We copied the Russians, we copied the Chinese. We had operators there that we called it set and pause. They would set in there, most of them set for 12 hours a day with earphones clamped to their head. And if they were copying Morse, most of them could be half drunk and copy the Morse. Yeah. My job was to repair the teletype and anything else that was broken down. repair, replace, or whatever it was. There was specialized radios that I repaired. We had radio teletype, which was on the back of a 3-corner truck, and we also had special antennas that we used to DF sites and those types of things. We traveled all over our area. If there was movement in wherever, what we would try to do was set up to copy whatever Morse was being sent out, or clear language. We had linguists with us, not only Vietnamese linguists, but Mountain Yard, all that stuff. This is stuff still going on today. So what we would do is they would give us information about where we were to set up. We would go out and set up, and because there was 2 of us, one of us would go out 1 week, the other would go out the next week, and we would go set up the site where we'd take the RTT with the special radio equipment in it, set that up, and run the generators. And once I'd set that location up, my job then was guard duty. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we also did, everybody pulled 4 hours of company duty after that, and you maybe slept a little bit. As I was in Bambi-Tuet, we were almost overrun in Bambi-Tuet, and what's particular about Bambi-Tuet was I was just 3 months in country, and it was really my first time out alone. And out alone means I'm with a linguist. They already have the equipment at Bambi-Tuet to set up, and we have to take a deuce and a half to Bambi-Tuet, and neither one of us had ever driven a truck. So we managed to get from first to second gear, and I think it was about 60 kilometers. So we drove that truck between the 2 of us 60 kilometers to Bambi-Tuet, and there, what my particular job was is we had a communication hut, which had about I want to say that particular size hut had about 24 teletype in it. And there again, this was going to be a super listening post, deeper into along the Cambodian border in that area. I was in the hut, wiring the hut up, and I have another sergeant helping me do that, and he takes off, and next thing I know is it was my first real severe rocket mortar attack. And of course, you don't understand about what happens then. Okay, your training's supposed to kick in, but fear kicks in. All right, and so what I did is I ran out, and as I'm running out, I realized I don't have my helmet, my flak jacket, I don't have my rifle, I don't have my ammunition, and there, because it's a Green Beret encampment, you're to go to a special bunker. I forgot where the bunker was, but I ran back in, got my crap, and ran back out, and I had a rocket or mortar round hit not far from me, knocked me unconscious. I come to, I remember which bunker I was supposed to go to, and I went to the bunker, and by that time we were under attack, and the officer asked me where the hell I'd been, and I said, I'm not sure, but he said, your area's over there. Take the M60, shoot it in that arc, and that's what I did. We repelled the attack, and I got out of there, and I went and had a shot of whiskey, and then I went back and finished the job that I was supposed to do. See, the first time's the key. You learn that that all those things that they've taught you are important, but it's the first time, and the realization, the true realization that you are under attack, and how do you handle that? Yeah. That happened in 3 months. It would have been September, about this time. Normally I go into a depression this time of year, because of that, but things have gotten a lot better. September, and our next big event was in December, and at that time we had a balloon. The CIA came in and going to be copying some very, very top secret stuff from the Chinese were sending out. So they bring in a balloon that's orange and white, and it's shaped like like the Hindenburg, or and it was approximately, I want to say, 75 feet long, right? And our job was to raise this balloon every day. It's going to be there for 3 weeks, every day for 3 weeks at a specific time. And on the balloon, it had a very, very special antenna, and the wiring coming down from the antenna was also very special and very low resistance, so that they could copy this information. And I don't know where, what, or why we're copying the information, but it was our job to copy the information. We'd raise it up, and they'd fire a lone mortar round or rocket over the top of it. And it was, for us, it was a joke. We each had to stand at the corner, there were 4 of us, hold the guide wire while it went up, and hold the guide wire down for approximately an hour and a half while they copying this information and bring it down. Well, one day, one of the rockets got lucky and hit a shed outside the mess hall, which this is Christmas time, and in that shed was Christmas stuff that people had sent us, so that all was destroyed. And we had a airborne ranger captain who had, at that time, was called battle fatigue, and he went a little nutso, and he told us to let the balloon go, and we all looked at each other, and we had been told specifically by a colonel and some guy in civilian clothes that we were not to let this balloon go. And he drew out his .45 and said, let the balloon go or I'm going to shoot you. So we all looked at each other, we let the balloon go, and it rose majestically into the air. And as it rose, the cable finally snapped. Twing! I can still remember the sound of the cable snapping, and it floats off leisurely into the air. Now, we did have to chase down the balloon. Yes, yeah, we had 2 helicopter units that were attached to us, and they went to get the balloon. The next day, the officer was gone. Our company was a stopping place for officers on the way up or way down, because officers had to spend so much frontline time, even the ones that were in the agency, and others courting. And of course, we celebrated the loss of the balloon duty with several cases of beer. We moved out of Pleiku. The whole 4th Division moved from Pleiku in January of 1970. I was the last troop to leave. They had 2 MPs left. I was the last troop that wasn't an MP to leave the 4th Division, 2 square mile area that we turned over to the Arbans. Leaving the equipment and deserting so much of people's lives that had put their lives, their time, their sweat and everything into these areas, and we're leaving. Everything that we had was just left. And then we went to On K, which was, and we pulled guard duty and that stuff there. That's when I would make trips into the Cambodian border. We had to set up sites there too. I only went in once. Most of my time was spent on the Cambodian border, and I watched the Vietnamese soldiers move the flags from one side of the border to the other, deeper into Cambodia, and the Cambodian guys would move them back. What we did was we set up listening posts for electronic intelligence. I was out in the field. I came back in. The first sergeant must have been on the same rotation as I was because he was always there. He tells me, pack my shit, I'm headed home. And I'm headed home about 10 days early. I had not any inkling that was going to happen. So I pack my stuff. I don't take a shower. I just grab my crap and get ready. I get on a helicopter. I fly to Nha Trang. I take a little plane to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base, and I'm on a plane to Japan, and then I'm in the States. In 36 hours, I transitioned from out in the field to the United States of America. I can still remember getting off the plane in San Francisco and how cold it was. But it was 60 degrees and it was so cold. And I come down the stairs and it's like you're into a big factory, you know. You come down the stairs, they take you to a replacement depot. That's what it was called, a replacement depot. You walk in there, you literally strip. Everything that you have is destroyed, and you take a shower and stuff. Your uniform is ready to go with all the right insignias, all the right medals. Everything's all attached, and I'm on a plane flying home to Kansas City. Now, can you imagine? Yeah. You know, and I'm 20 years old, and I have, at that time, I was drinking an average of a case of beer a day, and an average, and I won't talk about the other hard liquor that I was drinking, but it was quite the collision would be the correct term. You know, I couldn't sleep because we always slept next to a Hauser unit, and they fired missions all nights, every night, you know. And it was quite the experience to come back to the United States. You know, it was a different experience. Well, I didn't really seek out help for the culture change until I was 60. Because I thought I had it under control. I finished my tour with the Army, which was 4 years, 72. I got out in 72. I got married in 75, and we were married for 6 years. And my wife threatened to leave me with the children and all that. And I grew up without a father, and I always promised myself I would never desert my kids. She was working at the mental health unit up in Mercy here in Dubuque, and she had things already fixed up for me. I went into alcoholic treatment in January 27th, 1981. Struggled through the first 3 or 4 years, and I finally realized that I'm an alcoholic, and I've not had any drink since that time. I've been sober for over 40 years. The alcoholism, I don't want to say, came from the service experience. The alcoholism come from the cultural experience. When we start looking back at histories of that type of thing, I was tuned to be an alcoholic. What my experience in Vietnam and in the Army did was expedite that at that. So I got sober a lot sooner because of that expedition, and my life changed. Okay, now I've become a little successful. I'm 40 years sober. Recovered's a better term. That's the term I use most time. 40 years recovered. I spent 32 years on a school board elected position, on board of directors for the Illinois School Board Association, and I'm on the board of directors for our library. I learned to change my life and for the better. Service is part of what we do. What the Army did for me, and the Army did a lot of great things for me. The Army gave me a vision of mission, how to get the job done, how to get the job done right? And it also taught me about leadership, how to be a leader and how to take orders, and how to get a job done successfully, right? That I have to thank the Army for.